Hello, my name is Sahu and I'm from Orlando Science High School. I will begin my pro-challenge case speech. In the richest country in the history of the world, it is simply not acceptable that our younger generation, through no fault of their own, will have a lower standard of living than their parents. Bernie Sanders. Because I agree with the following quote, I strongly affirm today's resolution. The United States federal government should forgive all federal student loan debt. I'd like to begin by clarifying a few definitions. The term federal government refers to the central governing authority of the United States and includes the executive, judicial, and legislative branches. In recent times, President Joe Biden had attempted to forgive federal student loans. However, he was struck down by the Supreme Court. Through the phrasing of the resolution, we can assume that Congress has given the president a clear constitutional basis for his actions in forgiving such loans. There is a key difference between most debts and student loans. Compared to most debts, student loans can not be discharged by bankruptcy. Bankruptcy can give people a second chance by using a person's assets to pay off as much debt as possible. However, due to this limitation, people can only escape these debts through full repayment or at the end of their lives. I begin with my first contention. Canceling federal student loans is a crucial step towards reducing economic inequalities and addressing racial disparities in the United States. The racial wealth gap describes the stark difference in wealth held by Caucasian versus people of color in the United States, which stems from years of structural and systematic racism. As students of color begin college, the racial wealth gap often worsens. Because they have fewer socioeconomic resources, such as less parental and generational wealth, less home equity to finance a loan, and fewer savings, students of color are often forced to take on more debt to cover tuition and living expenses compared to their white peers. Data from the U.S. Department of Education indicates that around 86% of black students take out student loan debt, compared with around 68% of white students. According to the Roosevelt Institute in 2021, after secondary education, people of color also enter a discriminatory job market, which makes it difficult to pay down these increased debts. Historically, the burden of student loans has not only disproportionately affected people of color, but also women. In fact, a study by the American Association of University Women found that in 2019, women own nearly 2/3 of the national student loan debt. Additionally, because of the gender pay gap, women face more difficulties when it comes to paying off these loans, as they don't have as much disposable income as men. Ultimately, canceling federal student loans would act as a corrective measure, addressing historical injustices and fostering a more equitable society. By limiting the financial barriers associated with student debt, individuals from marginalized communities can have increased access to economic opportunities. I move on to my second contention. The cancellation of federal student loans is strategic investment that empowers both personal and national economic well-being. As of 2021, it was proposed that it would require $1.6 trillion to forgive all of federal student loan debts. However, the economic cost in the short run belies the impact of student debt on future investment and growth. Surging student loans negatively affect people and households by raising debt burdens, lowering credit scores, and limiting opportunities for home ownership and other financial long-term investments. By relieving individuals of this burden, it empowers citizens to achieve a significant life milestone, such as home ownership and savings, fostering long-term national economic stability. According to Abigail Hess NBC News, a survey among 6,000 student loan borrowers showed that 42% delayed paying off other loans, 40% delayed investing money, 38% delayed saving for retirement, and 33% delayed buying a home. According to Journal Labor Economics 2022, a $1,000 increase in student loan debt lowered the home ownership rate by around 1.8%. This would be an average delay of about 4 months in attaining home ownership for each $1,000 in debt. Debt forgiveness can also allow for individual financial security, but it can also fuel a broader economic ripple effect, encouraging investments, entrepreneurship, and overall national economic growth. According to the Roosevelt Institute in 2021, short-term consumption levels could be boosted by up to as much 4%, increasing real GDP between $86 billion to $108 billion per year. It would also reduce the unemployment rates between 0.22 to 0.36% per year over the next decade. Forgiving federal student loan debt is not a bailout. It's an investment in human potential and its ability to significantly address socioeconomic inequalities and empower individuals by fostering a more promising future and impacting every single person in society. I ask for pro ballot. Thank you. I will now move on to my challenge case speech. Addressing the burden of student loan debt is crucial. However, blanket forgiveness is not the most responsible approach. Targeted relief or partial forgiveness could be a more equitable solution, ensuring that those who truly need assistance could receive it. Because I agree with the following statements, I stand before you strongly negating today's resolution. The United States federal government should forgive all federal student loan debt. I begin with my first contention: forgiving all student debt will not solve the underlying problems of escalating college tuition fees. Forgiving all student debt resembles an analogy of treating the symptoms, however, not addressing the root causes. It fails to tackle the underlying issues of inflated tuition and systematic challenges in the educating finances system. According to Education Data Initiative, August 2023, the cost of tuition at public four-year institutions increased 9.24% from 2010 to 2022. After adjusting for current inflation, college tuition has increased 747.8% since 1963. By forgiving student loan debt without addressing the root cause of escalating tuition fees, we risk perpetuating a cycle where colleges continue increasing tuition without facing the full repercussions of a reduced enrollment. Instead, they might continue the practice of raising tuition, confident that students will still find a way to cover through their federal loans. Studies from National Bureau of Economic Research indicates there's a positive correlation between the availability of federal aid and rising tuition fees. Essentially, the more financial aid that is accessible, the more leeway colleges have to increase their prices. Reduced state funding towards education is also a large contributor to the ongoing rising tuition rates. Professor Doug Weber of Temple University stated that between 2000 and 2016, state spending on higher education was cut about $6,000 per student. That amount, Weber stated, was most certainly tacked onto the cost of tuition. I continue with my second contention. A more targeted approach, including a partial forgiveness plan, would be far more beneficial than a complete blanket forgiveness. Adopting a targeted approach to student loan forgiveness, particularly through partial relief, offers a more nuanced and equitable solution. Coupled with systematic reforms, it can encourage universities to curb the ongoing inflation of tuition fees. Blanket forgiveness would also inadvertently benefit higher income students who might not face the same financial hardships as their lower income counterparts. According to the House Committee on Ways and Means 2023, in the end, the administration's student debt cancellation proposal is costly and will drive up higher education costs and will deliver the majority of the benefits to those in the top half of the income spectrum. This means for 87% of American adults without student loans, President Biden would be sticking them with nearly a $600 billion tab. A partial forgiveness plan ensures that most vulnerable of society would receive substantive support, addressing financial burdens more effectively. I move on to my final contention that complete debt cancellation exacerbates economic disparities and places an undue burden on the working middle class. According to Congressional Budget Office, it is cautioned that the widespread student loan forgiveness could lead to increased federal deficits, potentially triggering inflationary pressures. This inflation is likely to affect the purchasing power of the middle class, creating a scenario where the very same demographic that was intended to benefit from the blanket forgiveness would end up shouldering the consequences of economic instability. Addressing the burden of student loan debt is crucial. However, a blanket forgiveness plan approach lacks responsibility. The root cause of rising tuition fees need addressing, and a partial forgiveness plan is necessary. I ask for a con ballot. Thank you.